Today, I'd like to take a look at Daniel chapter 2, verse 22, and it reads, He reveals the deep things and the hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells within him. A number of years ago, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with dementia. She was a godly woman for which I had a deep respect for as an example to me of a godly wife, mother, and pastor's wife. She and her family had seen its share of pain and tragedy as her youngest daughter, at the very early age, suffered from muscular dystrophy until her death at 41 years of age. There were many days, sometimes months, and extreme difficulties dealing with their daughter's illness. And with the passing of their daughter, I thought to myself, now my mother-in-law would have the time for herself and the years ahead to enjoy her husband as they headed into their retirement. But unfortunately, that was not to happen. Within a year after the death of their daughter, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with dementia. I drove by their home every day as I headed to my office and then home again. I often stopped by to see my in-laws, sometimes twice a day, and I watched as that beautiful person that I knew and loved, and who loved her Savior deeply and slowly, lost who she was, and she lost her dignity as it slipped away. It was heartbreaking at a deep level. It wasn't long that the woman I admired was no longer there, and what I saw was a mere shell of whom she had been. I saw the pain on my father-in-law's face, and yet unwavering faith they both had in their Savior, Jesus Christ. There was a day that is etched in my mind and my heart as I watched and experienced the pain and grief of the two people who served the Lord faithfully, who walked this incredibly difficult path as I came to a crisis point in my own life. And I can remember that day as I sat in my car and I said in prayer to the Lord, Why, God? Why, God, is this happening? Especially to a believer and one like my mother-in-law. And then I foolishly prayed, Lord, don't let this happen to my wife. I am not capable of handling it. My wife just recently passed away after suffering 8 years with early onset dementia. There are a great many things that we don't have the answers to, or that we would be unable to comprehend, that are clearly in the heart of God. Yes, our condition here and now is a result of the fall, but we often feel deep hurt in our hearts and souls when difficult times come, and it prevents us from trusting God with the big picture. Here in our text, Daniel's response goes to the heart of the unknown. It speaks to God's sovereignty and his providence. Listen to verses 21 and 22. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals the deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells within him. But there's also a preamble in verse 20 that I think is important. And we read there, Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever, to whom belongs wisdom and might. Our thinking must first start here with his providence. Then we must remember that there are those things that are deep and really often beyond us that remain in his capable hands. Daniel here speaks to that in the middle of verse 22. Listen to it. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. Our God knows what's in the darkness that crosses into our lives. And what we have to remember is that his grace is sufficient for those times. We may never know or completely understand God's purposes from time to time. But what we do know and have confidence in is that they are meant for our good in conformity to Jesus Christ and God's glory. And we read that in Romans 8:28 and 29. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn amongst many brothers. And we, like Job, rest in the wisdom and goodness of God. Listen to Job 12:13. With God are wisdom and might. He has counsel and understanding.